All right. What's going on, everybody? I am Tyrone E. Wilson. I am here today with Mr. John Robinson. Today, we're going to talk about mental health, another episode of my mental health journey. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this, as you can see, we're just two brothers here on a Saturday morning chopping it up. It's just this time we're going to talk about mental health. So I'm sure you've had multiple conversations with friends. Rob and I have had tons and tons of conversations over
Mhm.
the many, many years that we've known each other, from everything to business to relationships to, you know, being my consigliere. Rob's also my daughter's godfather. So, as you can imagine, the conversations get really good, really deep. But how often do we talk about mental health?
Right.
I think it might have came up maybe two times,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
with the anxiety thing that I was dealing with, and then it came up a little bit after I did the live a couple weeks ago.
Right.
So I was like, let's get it.
Yeah.
All right, let's get it. Um, Tell the people about yourself, right? Who is John Robinson?
Who? Who is John Robinson? Let's see. I am a father. I'm a husband. I'm a son. I'm a friend. Um, I do my best just to be an all around great guy. Right. A person who is empathetic yet firm, and loyal to his friends and his family, because at the end of the day, I'm very passionate about us all being able to win. Um,
Hmm.
I too have had my challenges, um, especially as it relates to mental health.
Hmm.
Some of which, admittedly, I was a bit, I was in denial, right? And
Hmm.
so, over the course of the last few years, is when I really started to understand, um, some of the meaning behind what it is that I've been experiencing and that I've been feeling. And so I've made a concerted effort to really start to dive into that and understand it so that I can address it and continue to put my best foot forward for not only myself, but also those that I love.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned a really good point, right? The fact that you do understand that there is something there,
Mhm.
right? Because you mentioned the fact that you were going to address it. So acknowledging something is there is probably the first part,
Right.
right? Because a lot of folks are in denial. How long do you feel that you might have been in denial about it?
Man, since I got back from Afghanistan,
Okay. And when was that?
that was 2004.
Okay.
So I did a tour in Afghanistan supporting Operation Enduring Freedom, 2003 to 2004. And, you know, admittedly, man, I've been changed ever since. Right.
Wow.
Um, I, I think, I think some good and some bad. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it really started to make sense for me whenever, um, people that are closest to me that I love started giving me examples of behavior that I've exhibited that they weren't used to,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I would definitely say, um, that change was around 2004. Whenever I really started to be real with myself about it, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're going to come back to that, though. We're
yeah.
definitely going to come back to that. But we want to know what was childhood like for you?
So so childhood for me was, it was good, but interesting at the same time. Um, Growing up in a single parent family for the majority of my life, because my parents divorced when I was very young, about 5 or 6, and so, I would say that growing up with my mother, um, it was challenging because of the fact that Um, I come from humble beginnings, much like most people that I know that are in my circle as well. But I was loved. I can definitely say that I had no doubt in my mind that I was
Mhm.
loved by my mother.
Mhm.
um, why I think it was challenging for me was because my dad and we kind of had this kind of rocky relationship because it was long distance, right? And
When did that start?
um, from 6 up until about 18.
Okay.
And so there were so many questions that I had that that I felt were unanswered, which created frustration,
Mhm.
which created anxiety.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't necessarily think that as a child or as a young man, right? Especially my teenage years, um, I really don't think that I understood who my father was enough to really be able to relate at that time.
Okay.
So my childhood, there were times when I would go visit my dad, over the summer here and there, maybe 2, 3 weeks, maybe a month, right? Um, but it was awkward. It was awkward um,
Mhm.
because we didn't have that relationship that we have
Mhm.
now today.
Mhm.
But I feel like my mother did everything that she could to ensure that I was loved, to make sure that I had as much fun as I could as a kid.
Mhm.
Um, of course, within her financial means,
Mhm.
right? Um, and and as a child, I learned the importance of hard work because my mom taught me early on
Mhm.
that I had to I had to be a young man very quickly. So yeah,
So I want to ask a specific question soon, but I want to hear it from you first.
yeah.
How do you feel your father's lack of presence
Hmm.
affected you? I'm gonna just keep it,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
broad like that.
yeah. Um, it was significant. It was very, very significant because there's three sides to every story, right? You have
Mhm.
her side, his side, and then the actual truth, right? And so um, there were times when I would always get my mom's side,
Mhm.
and that's what kind of shaped my opinion of my dad in the beginning,
Mhm.
right? And it took a lot for me over time as I got older to understand that just because I got one side of the story doesn't necessarily mean that that's the total story, right?
Okay.
Um, there were times when, man, I remember I was so mad at my dad because, let's say, for instance, I was supposed to see him. He was supposed to pick me up,
Mhm.
and I'd be so anxious and excited and ready, and then there would be a reason why he wasn't able to pick me up, right?
Okay.
Um,
Uh-huh.
and keep in mind, right, my I didn't live in the same area as my dad. My mom and my
Mhm.
dad were in different states um, after their divorce,
Uh-huh.
um, and my dad was military,
Mhm.
so he was traveling all the time, and so it was a situation where, as a kid and as a young man, I didn't truly understand the gravity of all of the different variables that could have prevented him from being able to see me.
Mm-hmm.
which could have been something as simple as a disagreement that he had with my mom,
Mm-hmm.
right? But always trying to ensure that I was protecting my mom's emotional state
Mm-hmm.
and being that support system. Um, I think that it was challenging, man.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. So you kept that broad. I have a specific one. How do you feel your father's lack of presence affected you when it comes to relationships?
Oh man, impacted me big time, big time, big time.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I can say that so confidently because I didn't have the example of a cohesive unit in the house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the example and the recollection, even to this day, and I'm almost 40 years old. I don't have a recollection of what it's like to court a woman, what it's like to date a woman, what it's like to do the things um, that are meant to preserve and maintain a successful relationship. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, all I knew was, hey, if we not on the same page, she got to go.
So,
You know,
of course, we have some experiences with that. Do you feel like
yeah,
it helped you, or do you feel like it
it
made you
it
a
hurt.
quote unquote? So you can openly admit that.
Yeah, yeah. I was in them streets, man.
Yeah.
I was in them
I mean,
streets.
yeah, we seen some of the reasons uh, why a young lady wouldn't make the cut. You know,
Yeah,
um, a lot of us would think it would be petty. You
right,
know,
right, right.
you want to share. You want to share some of those reasons,
Ooh, ooh.
or do you think the reasons would be too specific, and then if she's watching,
Yeah, I think it would be too specific, but I can say that
hmm
that through those lessons,
hmm
I am in a committed and loving relationship with my wife. We just crossed over our 5-year anniversary. Um,
congratulations.
Thanks, man. And
Hmm
we have 3 beautiful kids as a result of our relationship. We've been together almost 10 years. We've been together for 9 years. We've been married 5. And
hmm
you know, I can really say that being with my wife who has the patience um and and the desire to understand me just as much as I have, or I try my best to have the
hmm
patience, but I definitely have the desire to understand her. I feel like we are growing and developing our relationship in a successful way.
Yes, and that is a great segue. Of
Yeah.
course, I know your beautiful wife. Um, so it's actually a two-part question.
Yeah.
How did your mom's presence affect you? And do you feel like there's qualities in your wife that
Mhm.
are also in your mom?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Hmm
Um, I feel like my mom's presence was pivotal in me understanding how to treat a woman.
hmm
Um, because my mom would do her best to to always lead with an unbiased yet empathetic approach to
hmm
what I was experiencing, what I was feeling.
hmm
Um, and I think that the amount of love that my mom showed me, it really made me understand the importance of being selfless,
hmm
right?
hmm
Although, of course, my relationship with my mom is different than the relationship that I have with my wife. But I feel like that selflessness that my mom has shown me has given me a solid foundation for how I should treat others, especially those that truly care about me.
Okay.
Um,
Mhm.
and to answer the second part of your question, with relation to some of the qualities that my mom has that I feel my wife has, and and I'm sure my wife is going to watch this, and baby, this is not me comparing you to my mom. But my wife has the same level of compassion, the same level of empathy, the same level of selflessness, um, the same level of, and in some instances, drive,
Mhm.
and like more drive to succeed and to create a way out of no way. Um, you know, I would say that my mom's ability to make a way out of a very challenging situation, whether it be financial, whether it be professional, whatever the case,
Mhm.
really it really made me understand the importance of having heart. And also I would say that there's a saying that my mom would always tell me. She would always say that it's if I'm in a challenging situation, it's up to me to find the best out of that situation and do whatever I can to make it better.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
what's up. That's what's up. We're gonna bring it back a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talk about, is anxiety. We
Hmm.
talk about PTSD sometimes,
Hmm.
but we also mention the fact that you know it's can start as a kid,
Yeah.
right? Like we've
Yeah.
both been deployed,
Yeah.
but I'm sure we know some kids who've seen a lot more violence,
Yeah.
that we have, right? Can you speak to thoughts of anxiousness or violence that you may have seen as a kid?
Oh man. Um, so growing up, growing up in an environment, um, so growing up in an environment where I didn't have a silver spoon, right? It was kind of like the neighborhood that I grew up in, I would say was not I mean, I can't necessarily say that there were gunshots all the time in my neighborhood. Um, but at the same time, we definitely weren't living in the lap of luxury, right? Um, in terms of violence, violence was common. It's common, especially when you're in an area where the majority of the people in your environment don't really have a surplus. They have just enough to survive, right? I remember violence in school. I remember being in school, metal detectors at the school. I remember fights that weren't just fist fights. I'm talking about cats bringing in pipes and bottles and monkey wrenches and
Mm.
screwdrivers
And
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 you
where was
know,
this?
this was in high school.
But
This was
where
in
the
high.
location?
Oh, this was in Petersburg, Virginia. So
Okay.
I went to high school in Petersburg, Virginia, and and it was normal for us though. You didn't feel unsafe. It was just
Hmm.
normal. You ain't run your mouth. If as long as you didn't run your mouth, ain't nobody try you, right? Um,
So you could just kind of sit back and just,
yeah,
as long as
yeah,
it ain't me,
yeah.
it's just
Keep it,
every day. Yeah.
yeah, keep your mouth shut, keep your head low, mind your business. You
Hmm.
know, um, I remember, I remember drugs were common,
Hmm.
right? Um, drugs were common. I had friends that sold drugs. I didn't sell
Hmm.
drugs because my mom was on me hard, so
Hmm.
that wasn't happening. And plus, I didn't have the desire to. But some people do what they feel they have to do in order to make a way, especially when it comes to making money. My family, so my roots are based in Miami, Florida, Dade County, Overtown. And
Mhm.
so a majority of my family is still there.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm sure you already know, Tyrone, with Miami comes the same rules, the same set of principles. Keep your mouth shut, keep your head down, mind your business, right?
Mhm.
Because it's common for people that are going above and beyond to not mind their business. They might get
Mhm.
shot. They may get robbed, right?
Yeah.
I remember being with my grandma, and you would hear gunshots. It was normal to hear some gunshots, and it was nothing, and you just go on about your business. It was normal. So I can't necessarily say that I had anxiety from that, because the different environments were kind of normalized, and you start to compartmentalize what you think is just a normal state of affairs until you find out when you go other places and you're like, no, this isn't normal,
Mhm.
you know.
Okay. What was no? I always bring up the fact that by sophomore year,
Yeah.
you have an idea of who you are.
Yeah.
So talk about you figuring out who you are in high
Hmm.
school and that thought process for what you wanted life to be like after high school.
Ooh, great question. Great question. So since I was a kid, I always wanted to be a businessman.
Hmm.
Always. And this starts before my sophomore year in high school. I used to go down to Miami every summer and stay with my grandmother. And we were living in California at the time because
Hmm.
I was a military brat. My mom left the military. She went government, so she got a job out there, and the whole story, right? So I used to fly. This was back before all of the security at the airports, where your parents would be able to take you all the way to the gate. They would
Hmm.
hand you off to a flight attendant. They'd pin the little wings on your chest,
Yeah.
and you would fly by yourself as a kid. And then my family in Miami would be on the other side and at the airport, and they would pick me up at the gate, and then we'd go from there. But what stuck out in my mind was two primary things. My mom didn't really have money like that, but the prestige and the look of a businessman let me know that they were clearly making some money.
Hmm.
So when I used to be in the airport flying back and forth, I would always see the businessmen with the briefcases, the suits, they were clean cut. And I
Hmm.
say,
I want that.
I want that.
Hmm.
And so that's what kind of implanted the seed in my mind that business may be the direction that I want to go in. As I was in high school and I started to truly understand what that may take,
Hmm.
and then you come back to the reality, I don't got no money to be paying for college and all this other stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
And my mom told me, she said, look, I'm willing to take out a second mortgage on the house
Oof.
if you want to go to college.
Uh-huh.
But I wasn't willing to do that because
Uh-huh.
I knew what my childhood was like growing up, and I didn't want to put additional stress
Hmm.
on my mom because in my mind I was saying, what if I fail?
Hmm.
What if I fail? What if I fall short? How is my mom going to recover from that? And would
Yeah.
I be able to help my mom recover if I failed?
Hmm.
And so that was kind of a challenging and pivotal point in my life where I just had to fall back on what I knew, which was the military.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I was going to ask what made you join. And you
Yeah.
said both parents were military, right? So it's
Yeah.
probably something you felt comfortable with.
Yeah.
Army?
Army. Yeah.
Army? Okay.
Yeah. I
Um,
I knew the ins and outs. So I said if they could do it,
mhm.
why not?
Okay. I mean, I know the answer to this, but the audience may
Mhm.
want to know.
Yeah.
Your siblings.
Yeah. So I have one brother. Um, and my brother is half my age.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad remarried, and him and my stepmom at the time, they had my brother.
Okay, so you've been flying solo pretty much your whole life. What's that like? And I've had siblings in the house, or cousins in the house, or friends in
Yeah,
the house. I've
yeah,
always had someone.
yeah.
What's that like?
Man, it was it was fun. Um, Sorry, mom. There's a lot of stuff that I did that you don't know because I never had anybody to snitch on me. um,
Uh,
but it was fun at times. It was lonely.
mhm,
Um, it was challenging because I'm forced to try to figure out this whole life thing on my own. I was
mhm,
a latchkey kid, right? So I was forced to grow up and be a young man very quickly. I was doing my own laundry at 8 years old. I
mhm,
I was cooking by the time I was probably 11 or 12.
mhm.
Um, it was even though I grew up as an only child, I didn't have the spoiled silver spoon experience of being an only child. It was
Why? Yeah,
it
why
was
is that? Why
you
do you
gotta
think you
grind.
weren't spoiled? Because it just, I know
Didn't
you
have it.
mentioned the fact you didn't have it. Okay.
Yeah, didn't have it. Didn't
Mhm,
have it. I mean, I remember, man, something as simple as, "Hey, my homeboy is about to go to the mall, and he asked me if I want to go, and I'm like, Ma, can I just get $20?"
mhm.
And she'd be like, "What you gonna do to earn it?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Well, what you need me to do?" And she's like, "Well, you need to cut the front and the backyard." And I'm like, "But he's leaving in
Yeah.
30 minutes, right?" And I'd be out there 90 degrees cutting the grass just to get a quick $20.
Uh-huh.
And I wouldn't even spend the $20 because I didn't know the next time that 20 was coming back.
Yes. You know what? Interestingly enough, that made me think about something that I
Yeah.
almost tweeted. So I think I was gonna be like, imagine knowing that you
Mhm.
cannot ask your parents for $100,
Yeah.
right? Imagine
Yeah.
going through life like knowing that.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
imagine knowing the amount of kids that have the ability to ask their parents for $1,000 and it's nothing to them.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro.
Imagine like how
Absolutely.
that affects you. Like even growing up, you kind of still feel like you can't ask them either. They ain't gonna have it, or you're worried about their feelings when they tell you that
Yep.
they can't do it, or that they'll try, or the fact that just to get that $100, the amount of work that
Yeah.
they got to put in to get it makes you not even want to go there, right?
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
know that's got to affect a child because I lived it, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's huge, man. I mean, I remember, bro, like I never even had a pair of Jordans
mhm,
in my life, right?
true.
Um,
Yeah.
my mom, my mom, so we had this agreement. My mom would always tell me, "I'll buy what you need, you buy what you want," right?
Okay.
So and at the time my foot was growing like crazy. And
Hmm.
she's like, "I'm not about to drop $150 on some sneakers and then you can't fit them in 5, 6 months."
Right.
Right. So she'd be like, "You better get a job. You better get out in this neighborhood, do something." She would tell me, "As long as what you do is morally and ethically correct, whatever you gotta do to make your own money, do it."
Hmm.
And that's what created my entrepreneurial hustler type mentality where
Yeah.
I would stop at nothing and I would always have a pocket full of money.
Hmm.
Always. Because whenever the time came and I'm like, I don't want to be the one where I'm constantly having to ask my mom and I know that she's going to have to sacrifice something in
Mhm.
order to give it to me.
Mhm.
Um, and then when I started making my own money, I literally, so let's just say if I had $200 that I made, and I go to the mall and I'd be like, all right, I could get a pair of Jordans for 150, or I can get these white on white Air Force Ones that are $50. Give me two of those, and I still have $100 in my pocket, right? So I never owned a pair of Jordans in my life
Mhm.
because based off of the financial struggle, it really made me adjust my judgment
Mhm.
on what is most important to me.
Okay. So we're transitioning from childhood to high school to life after high school.
Yeah.
Um, we already know moms was on it, right? Had that
Mhm.
military background, instilled some discipline in you. Um, so it's clear like that discipline was there.
Yeah.
Um, was it a major transition to go from the army, from high school to the army, having to listen to different people? Like, was it even challenging for you from a mental standpoint?
Um, so let me take a step back before I answer that question. I didn't go straight to the military from high school. So I worked and I did construction. So I worked for this company that builds trusses for houses, rooftops, and it's basically like a A-frame. And and I did that for probably 3 or 4 months. And that let me know construction is not my thing. Because I would literally have to be up at 4:30 in the morning. I had my supervisor that would pick me up. We would be at work by 6. We would work from 6 to 3. I would come home and be so exhausted that I would lay down in the middle of the living room floor and pass out asleep. My mom telling me dinner's ready, and I'd be like, I'm not even hungry. I just want some sleep. Right? It was a beast. And after about 4 months of that, I was like, all right, it's
I'm
time to
good.
yeah. I was like, it's time to
Uh-huh.
go to go to the military. But but going back to your question about was it hard for the transition? No.
Mhm.
No. Listening and taking direction from the drill sergeants and things like that. No, because my mom was like a drill sergeant.
Mhm.
My mom
So,
was she was my first experience
mhm,
at a drill sergeant.
right.
Yeah.
Um, so a follow-up question to that, right? I know when I left, I had to leave young siblings
Yeah.
and my mom, and that was pretty tough.
Right.
But you, without the siblings, how tough was it knowing that your mom was going to be there, that you were leaving your mom now?
That was challenging. That was challenging because for so long I was my mom's rock, my mom's stability. And even though my mom didn't share everything with me, she shared a lot with me, right? And so now and then on top of that, for me, she was my rock. She was my stability. And so you don't have the ability to confide in that person that was just one door over from you for your entire life, right? Um, it was different. It was an adjustment. But for me, I just always heard in the back of my mind what she would tell me. It's up to you to make the best of your situation.
Okay. The
Yeah.
job that you picked for the military,
Yeah.
um, do you feel like your childhood influenced that decision?
No.
Because I'm sure you didn't just take the first option available, right?
I
First of all, what was the job and what made you take it?
so so this is
Mhm.
interesting. So my decision on the job that I chose was based off of how long the training was, right? Because I was equating I was equating college. If I went to college, what would be something kind of similar that I could potentially get from the military? Um, and I remember when the recruiter asked me, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Honestly, I don't know." I said, "I want to be a businessman." And he said, "Well, we don't have jobs like that here in the military, in the army. Um, is there anything else that you're interested in?" And he said, "You got to give me something." So I said to him, and at the time, remember America Online, we used to get the little CDs in the mail, right? So you can get free Wi-Fi for 300 hours or something like that, right? And I remember we used to get those in the mail all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, "What do you like?" He said, and as a kid, I was always a thinker. So I used to take things apart and look at the inside components, and
Mm-hmm.
that would always pique my interest on how it worked. So I said, "I like electronics." So he shows me a series of videos for like electrical engineering and other MOSs, and I was like, "Nah." so so then he says, "Well, we have," and at the time there were 212 jobs to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Well, do you know anything about computers? We got these new computer jobs."
Mm-hmm.
And all I knew about a computer was America Online, that little CD in the middle. And I was like, "Yeah, I know about computers."
uh,
And so he sent me, he showed me two videos. One was 74 Charlie and one was 74 Bravo. It was
uh,
radios and information technology. And so I remember my mom was always like, "You should try to get a clearance if you can."
mm-hmm.
And at the time, the Charlie would have given me a higher clearance,
Mm-hmm.
but the course was only 8 weeks long.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked at 74 Bravo, it was 18 weeks long.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Give me that one. I'll take the 18-week one." And that's literally what put me into information technology. Um, and that was my first exposure to computers and networks, and what has kind of culminated into a 21-year career to this day.
Yeah. I was a 74 Bravo. Shout out to 74 Bravos out there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what's up. So we're in the military. Did you ever think you'd get deployed?
No, no, I didn't.
Where was your first duty station?
So my first duty station was Fort McNair in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
I was expecting to go to either Korea or Germany.
Uh-huh. What year was this?
This was 2001. 2001.
Okay.
Um, all of my peers were going to either Korea or Germany.
Uh-huh.
And it was literally five or six of us. They were like, "You're going to Fort McNair." And I called my dad and I was like, "Dad, what's Fort McNair?"
Uh-huh.
He was like, "Son, I don't know." He said Fort McNair. I said, "Yeah." I said, "My orders say Fort McNair,
Uh-huh.
Washington, D.C."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Let me make a few calls and I'll get back to you."
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that it was a garrison post, um,
Mm-hmm.
home of the old guard, and
Mm-hmm.
the rest was history.
That's what's up. So imagine at this point you gotta be what, in your early 20s?
No, I left right out of high
Still
school.
18, 19?
So I
Okay,
was
so still 18,
18,
19.
19. Yeah.
So I'm sure relationships or learning how to be in relationships, or at least making an attempt to 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 hunt, right?
Oh, I was
At
hunting.
a, that's what I was getting at. When did that start, and how do you feel your childhood affected your approach to the hunt? Because
Ooh, ooh,
I've seen.
yeah, yeah.
I'll let you spill it. Uh,
um, so my approach, well, when I got to Fort McNair, and I was, well, basically when I found out what Fort McNair was all about, and I was told you're going to Chocolate City,
mhm,
and I was like, Chocolate City, and they was like, yeah. I said, and I remember one of the NCOs telling me, you gonna have fun.
uh-huh,
And I said, bet. um, but before I got to DC, I came home on HRAP, hometown recruiting.
mhm,
So I was home at my mom's house for like 2.5 weeks doing different recruiting activities at my high school and things like that. And so by the time I got to DC,
mhm,
um, it was game on. And one
mhm,
of the reasons why it was game on was because I had found out that my longtime girlfriend, that I even considered marrying, cheated on me and got
mm.
pregnant by another dude.
Ah,
And so this was literally 2.5 weeks before I was going to my first duty station.
oh,
Right.
okay.
Yeah. So,
That explains some of it.
yeah. So, and what was crazy is, I mean, he called my mom's house and
Oh,
said, "Hey man, I can't keep this inside anymore." Um, and he spilled the beans on the whole situation. So while I was off in AIT doing my training and things like that, um, they were together. And this was
so
the woman that I considered marrying at an
wow.
early age.
So your
Yeah.
mom knew before you?
No, my mom didn't
Oh
know.
no.
No. So apparently what happened was, and I'm willing to spill this.
Mhm.
So apparently what happened was she told him I was going to be in town, and
Ah,
and so he went through her phone, got my mom's number out of her phone, and timed it when I'd be in town, called the house, and told me everything.
wow.
So now, fast forward, by the time I got to DC, it was game on. I was
Yeah,
like,
I was
I was
gonna
like,
say. I imagine.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was an easy transition and adjustment for me.
Was it easy?
Yeah,
Was it
yeah.
easy though?
After I got over the tears
Uh-huh.
and the frustration, because remember, this is somebody that I considered marrying, man.
Mhm.
We had been together throughout most of my high school career, and yeah, I'm not even gonna sit up here in front like my heart wasn't broken, but
Mhm.
but once I got over that,
Mhm.
put
So
me
I
in,
feel like,
coach.
yeah, I feel like there's a difference between someone cheating and then someone cheating and now she pregnant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whole different ball game, bro.
Yeah,
Whole different ball game. I mean,
yeah,
because now I am forever reminded,
yeah,
if I would have stayed, I'm forever
yeah,
reminded of somebody that I put my faith and trust in doing me dirty in the most
yeah,
pivotal way.
yeah. And now it's like absolutely no way. There's no way to return
No,
from that.
no,
I'm good. We good. So we
yeah,
in Chocolate City,
yeah,
2000, early 2001.
yeah,
You out
yeah,
and about as a
yeah,
young man.
yeah.
Um,
Pocket full of money because I'm getting paid every
money,
first and the 15th. Yeah,
getting paid,
yeah,
probably living nice
yeah,
right now. You're tall, so you're probably, the cup of tea out there, right?
right, Mhm.
The savagery is there though.
It's there.
When does that? When do you feel like that stops? When did
Mhm.
that stop? Like, did you move on to a new relationship, um, or do you feel it was always there?
The savagery in my mind was always there, um, because you got to remember this all stems from my childhood, right?
Hmm.
My childhood was not predicated on long term cohesive relationships. It was
Hmm.
all based off of the notion that you have to get your numbers, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it was never a situation where I understood what it was like to cultivate a solid, long lasting relationship.
Okay.
Um, there were there were relationships that I was in with some great women. I'll admit, over the course of my life, I've been very fortunate to meet some great women, but for one reason or another, it didn't work out. I think most of it was because I was not mentally where they were.
Okay.
I was just so focused on the fact that I never wanted to feel what it was like not to have again. So I was focused on making money and just
Mhm.
having fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so you're in the military.
Yeah.
When was your first deployment, and what were your thoughts on hearing that news?
Man. So this this I think was one of my first experiences at um anxiety.
Okay.
Um my first deployment. So let me give you a short story about how my first deployment came to be. So I was it was me and two other people that were considered to go to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, as I mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
But what's different compared to my deployment is I was an individual augmentee.
Okay.
So that means that I didn't go with my unit. I didn't go with my friends that I had worked with and know. I didn't go with my leadership that has been training me and schooling me.
Hmm.
I was literally selected to go by myself to attach to a civil affairs battalion that I didn't know anybody in a foreign land
Hmm.
before the age of 21 to fight a war that I didn't completely understand.
Wow. Hmm.
Um, and the anxiety leading up to that was crushing. It was crushing. Um, I remember the selection process vividly when my NCOIC calls me and two other people in his office, and he says, "Hey, we just received notification that we're going to have to send one of you over to Afghanistan in support of the mission." And remember, I'm like a E3. Yeah, I was an E3 at the time. I didn't know what that
Hmm.
meant, right?
Yeah.
Plus, you got to remember, I'm I'm assigned to Fort McNair, but I'm attached to Fort Belvoir. So I'm in the DC metro area. I'm living my life.
Hmm.
I haven't played Army yet, right? So now I'm about to play Army for the first time in my career at war instead of leading up to all of that stuff that most forward deployed units do.
Hmm. And again, doing it alone.
Doing it alone.
Hmm.
So we're all standing there and he says, "Do I have any volunteers?" We all stand there, look at each other. We look at him, and nobody said a word. So, so then he says, "Okay, well, we could do this one of two ways. Either I can put names in a hat and we select the name, or if somebody wants to volunteer, feel free to speak up. And I said, I'll take my chances with the hat. So after that happened, we put we each wrote our names on a piece of paper, dropped it in a hat, and and he shook it up and he said, "Who wants to select the name?" And I said, "I'll do it." So I put my hand in the hat, picked out a name, gave it to him, and it was one of the other guys that were chosen. Right. So
Mhm.
so me and my other homeboy, we looked at each other, we were like, whoo. So at that point, he says, "Oh, Basan, I'm Cat 4 on dental. I have this issue, that issue, all
Yeah,
of
of
this."
course, of course.
So I look at him and I was like, I see how this is going to go.
Mhm.
And at the time, I just started learning routing. So I go back to my office. I was talking to my NCO and I was like, "Sorry, I got a feeling that I'm going to get chosen." And he was like, "I thought you told me that somebody else was chosen." I said, "Yeah, they were." I said, "But he got all these issues and I don't have any issues. I don't have any kids. I don't have
Oh,
a
yeah,
wife.
cool.
I'm going."
Yeah. Uh-huh.
30 minutes later, the phone rings. My NCOIC says, "Hey, Rob, just want to let you know you've been chosen. We think that you'd be the best to represent us over there." So I was like, "All right, cool."
Mhm.
Hang up the phone. I said, "See, sir, I told you."
Uh-huh.
So I said, "I'll be right back. I got to call my mom." So I called my mom and I said, "Hey, mom, just want to," and she was at work at the time. I said, "Hey, I just want to give you a heads up. I just found out that I've been chosen and I'll be put on orders to go to Afghanistan." And it crushed me. And the reason why it crushed me is because this is the first time that I've had to, although it was unintentional, break my mom's heart with news that she wasn't expecting.
Mhm.
Right. So my mom gets quiet, doesn't say a word. And at that point I knew she was crying.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So so I'm like, "You all right, ma?" And she's like, "I'm okay." But she's sobbing and a tear starts to come down my face. So I'm like, man. So she says to me, "I just need a few minutes." So I said, "Okay, I'll just call you back later." So I hang up the phone and I'm like, I got to gather my thoughts. And I'm like, man, I'm crushed. Now that the anxiety is coming back and it's even stronger now, it's building
Yeah.
up. So now I got to call my dad, right? I got to call my dad, let him know. But this is one of the complete differences between my mom and my dad. My mom, very emotional, very empathetic, very delicate in her approach. My dad, alpha male, 25-year first sergeant, no nonsense, get the job done, get back. Right? So
Mhm.
this is what I'm dealing with. But keep in mind that I was raised and lived my entire life with my mom.
Mhm.
All of those other soft skills that I had absorbed in me over the span of my life, whereas all the other hard skills I didn't receive yet.
Mhm.
So I call my dad. I tell my dad, "Hey, just want to let you know I'm coming up on orders. I'll be headed out in June to go to Afghanistan." You know, my dad says to me, "All right."
Mm. Were you expecting more? Were you expecting something different?
I was expecting
Of
more
course, yeah.
and something different. So I
Mhm.
said, Dad, that's it? He says to me, and I quote, "You be all right. You are Robinson.
Mm,
Just go ahead, get over there so that you can get back. I'll see you when you get back."
mm. Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
So I have this anxiety, these emotions that are doing backflips inside of me. And at the time, I was dating somebody. Now I got to tell her,
Mhm.
right? And whenever I finally told her, she didn't know how to take it because she doesn't have a military background. She doesn't understand. She doesn't come from that. And I remember I just broke down.
Mhm.
I broke down and I started crying on her shoulder because I didn't know what I was up against.
Yeah.
I wasn't going over there with the comfort of having people that I was familiar with in a foreign land
Mhm.
fighting a war that I
Mhm.
didn't understand. And this is all at 19, 20 years old.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Wow.
it was challenging.
Wow. Bring me to this question: how did you handle that anxiety of pre-deployment? Because you know you got to go,
That's
right?
right.
You got
That's
to
right.
go. I'm pretty sure you had like a what 2-3 month prep window.
About 30 days.
Oh yeah, so you were individual, so it's a little different. Okay.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
All right.
I literally had to put all my stuff in storage, move out of my apartment, um, and I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, all within 30 days. And then I was there at Fort Benning. Well, I would say a month and a half. So I was there at Fort Benning. I got a whole bunch of different shots, um,
Yeah.
and then I was on the C-130 headed over.
Mm,
So handling the anxiety of pre-deployment, I don't know how I handled it, man. I don't know. I remember going driving down to see my mom before I left.
mhm.
I got pulled over
Mhm.
by a state trooper,
Mhm.
um, for my window tint, and I remember I had my orders in the back seat of my car, and the cop was ready to give me a hard time, and I said, "Look, man," I said, "you can give me a ticket, but I'm not gonna make it to court."
Mhm.
And he said, "Well, why is that?" I said, I just found out I'm going to Afghanistan." And he said, "Are you serious?" And I said, "I got my orders in the back seat if you want to see them." And so he told me, he's like, "Hey man, I'll just give you a warning this time." He said, you know, do your best to make it back and just take care of it when you get back. So
Mm,
that's how it
mhm.
was, bro.
Wow.
That's how it was.
Another question: what were your thoughts on actually like? I call it war,
Yeah.
but we know, you know,
Yeah.
gunfire,
Hmm.
mortars, rockets.
Right.
You know, what was it? What was it like the first time hearing that?
Ooh. In terms of the term war or all of the experiences of war at that time.
Well, I'm just kind of calling it war. I know, like my experience, I'm there, and the people that have been there for a while would be like, "Did you hear that?" And I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Nah, I didn't hear nothing.
Right.
That was a rocket attack or that was a mortar." I'd be like,
Got it.
"Nah, I didn't hear nothing." And then, 4 months in, I'm like, "Boom, that was a rocket.
Right.
It's way over there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or that was a mortar. It was over there,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I understand the question now. um, the first time I heard it, my stomach fell to my feet.
Mhm.
So whenever we flew in, so I was at Bagram Airfield. Whenever we landed, the back hatch, I remember this clear as day. So we went from the States to Germany to Kyrgyzstan to Afghanistan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Kyrgyzstan to Afghanistan was a C-130. I'm sitting on that hard net for 4.5 hours. My butt is numb. I got on noise canceling headphones, but can't hear a thing because the propellers
Right.
are so loud. So I'm
Right.
I'm anxious, right? I'm anxious. I'm nervous. I got my
Yeah.
M16. I got my duffel bags. I don't know what the hell I'm about to get myself into.
Mm-hmm.
I'm by myself.
Yeah.
Um, we finally we're coming in. We're doing a series of maneuvers prior to landing.
Mm-hmm.
We finally touch down on the tarmac. The back hatch opens up. I look around and I see nothing but mountains, sand,
Yeah.
airplanes, helicopters. And I'm like,
It's real.
this is real. Ain't no all the creature comforts that I'm used to out the
Mm-hmm.
window.
Mm-hmm.
I finally report to my unit and they said, you got perfect timing, Robinson. I said, why is that, sir? He said, we just had a rocket attack that you missed 30 minutes ago. Right? So I'm like, damn, I just got here. Next thing you know, probably 2 hours later after I got a briefing, I go to my tent and I'm putting all my stuff down and it's just like you know how it was. Little tent,
Yeah.
you have your cot, you got a little box that you put your little toiletries and stuff in, and all of a sudden I hear
Yeah.
boom. And I was like,
Yeah.
I look around and the tent, everything is shaking. And at that point was when it just hit me. I'm
Like
like,
I could die.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, the clock starts now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to expect. I don't know how this is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And just the different sounds throughout that entire first day um, shook me up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember that same day, a guy had just come back from a deployment. I mean, not a deployment, but a convoy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was all disheveled. He was
Mm-hmm.
dirty. His DCUs were all messed up. And so I overhear him telling somebody what just happened. They had just ran over an IE not a not no, they didn't run over anything. They got hit by an IED. And it completely dismantled the entire front of the Humvee that he was in, and he was this close to dying, and he's literally standing 2 feet in front of me, and I was just like, this can't be real.
Mm-hmm.
So that was those were my thoughts of my first sounds of war.
Okay. So we're gonna move a little bit,
Yeah,
move forward because we know you were there for a while. Chances are,
yeah,
you know, you've seen some things.
yeah,
So the next question is, how you experienced death while deployed,
yeah.
and what did you feel?
Many times, many times. Um, I experienced death on both sides, on our side and on the other side. I've I've
Mm-hmm.
I've I've seen the result of a man be chopped in half by a series of 50 caliber machine gun rounds. Um, I've seen the casket that I flew back with on the C-17 coming back from Afghanistan. Um,
Meaning like you're on your way home,
yeah,
you're there in your seat, butt getting numb, all that stuff.
Yeah,
but
and the
there's
casket
somebody right there with you that's also going home.
in a
But
casket in a casket with an American flag draped over it. Um, I felt survivor's guilt.
mhm,
I felt I felt frustration. I felt anxiety. I felt nervousness.
mhm,
Um, I didn't know how. I didn't know at the time how it would affect me,
mhm,
but I knew that it was going to affect me. Um, I've seen a lot, man. I've
mhm.
seen a lot. Yeah,
So I want to touch on how it affected you, but
yeah,
I want to also first talk about, some of the things you did to maintain, while you're out there, because you ain't going home
right,
for months.
right.
So what are some of your thoughts? What are some of the things that you're doing, that makes you get up the next day, and
Yeah,
not, think about pulling that trigger on yourself,
right.
because some soldiers can't handle that. Some
True,
humans can't handle that.
true, true.
Hmm.
Um, I would say what got me through was was my belief system. One, I've never said so many prayers in my life.
Hmm.
I probably said 30 to 50 prayers a day.
Hmm.
I mean, everything from God, thank you for allowing me to see another
Hmm.
day, to God, thank you for allowing me to get from my tent to the chow hall safely.
Oh yeah,
To
yeah.
you know, if we are going on a convoy, God, please protect us as we go down this road to Kabul or Jalalabad. Um, God, thank you for allowing us to get to Kabul or Jalalabad. Please keep
Hmm.
me safe. Please keep me aware. Please don't allow me to get complacent. Um, I think that the fact that I was nervous every day is what really helped me to survive because it kept me on my toes. It kept
Hmm.
me aware because I knew that if I got complacent, there's a chance that we could get ambushed. There's a
Hmm.
chance that I may get lazy and might forget to clear around out of my M16 and then an accident happens, right? It
Hmm.
was it was it was just a constant state of just it was my faith, it was being anxious, being nervous, but at the same time being composed enough to process it
Hmm.
with a focus on the next day. Um, I listened to music
Hmm.
every opportunity that I could to provide some type of um, calming effect.
Hmm.
Um, and then I did my best not to dwell on the situation, right? Because
Hmm.
I kept hearing my mom over and over. It is up to you to make the best of your situation. And so I would try to find the beauty in every uncomfortable experience while over there.
Okay. Do you remember your worst moment while deployed?
Yeah, I do. There's a couple. I remember pulling security. It is below zero. And they don't have traditional seasons. Like
Hmm.
you don't just kind of go into winter, summer, spring, fall. It
Hmm.
was literally like 90 degrees one day and then it was like 10 degrees the next, right? Um, every week you would have a rotation where you had to pull security while they were building different things on the post, whether it be paving roads, permanent structures for instead of us sleeping in the tent, it would be an actual wood structure. Um, and I remember being pulling security and none of the cold weather equipment that they gave me was enough. And I was so cold. I was so cold. And I remember It was me and I think it was 2 or 3 other people, while these Afghans are building these huts, excuse me, and they had on nothing but paper thin um, pants, tops, and some sandals with no socks, and they're just like, it's not even phasing them. We are freezing, and I remember us having to dig a hole in the ground, and we just kind of grabbed some scrap wood from what they were using and had to create a little fire just to keep ourselves warm, because we were outside without the proper equipment to keep ourselves from freezing,
Hmm.
because we weren't acclimated to that. And most of the people that I was with at that time, like I didn't come from Fort Drum like a lot of the people did that have cold weather experience. So I wasn't prepared. Um, Another time was going on a convoy and leaving that gate for the first time, where they say, "All right, everybody, lock and load," and
Hmm.
everybody locking and loading,
Yeah.
and they open up that gate, and it is just miles and miles of road, and they have these checkpoints, and you see an Afghan off in the distance, and right next to him is a rocket propelled grenade propped up on a little stand, and he's
Hmm.
looking at you, and you're looking at him, and you're saying to yourself, I have an M16 with bullets, and he has a rocket propelled grenade.
Hmm.
I'm not going to win. I'm not going to win. All he needs to do is shoot in my direction, and he'll clear this whole block out.
Hmm.
And I have to be precise while he's 200 yards away. It's a terrible feeling being in the middle of the capital city in Kabul, and I'm surrounded by 2,000 Afghans that are trying to get whatever they can. I remember there was a lady. She comes up to me and she says, Mr. Bashish, asking for food or money or water, something. She has a baby in her arms. And I remember she's holding a baby in her arms, asking me to help her. And on the ground is her son, who is paralyzed from the waist down. And he's dragging himself on his hands, following his mom through the streets of Kabul. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, she should be putting down the kid in order to pick up the one that's walking on his hands.
Hmm.
But she just completely disregarded that little boy. So, those are just a handful of the moments. There's a series of other ones, but those are just a couple of the worst moments that I've experienced while being deployed, where there's nothing that you can do, man. And all you're focused on is trying not to get killed, trying to protect to the best of your ability and still make it home in one piece while salvaging your your mental state.
Okay. When did the fear of dying from war end? Like, at what point did you feel like, all right, you
Hmm.
know, I kind of don't have to think about this no more.
Yeah,
I imagine like the coming home might have been different
yeah,
because, we had a staging area. You feeling like a sitting duck in the staging area. You
yeah.
feeling like a sitting duck going to the plane. You kind of
Hmm.
almost feeling like a sitting duck, you know, in the plane. So
Yeah,
what was it, you know, when did you feel like you could exhale? Like, all
yeah.
right, you know. And hold on, did you come home for R&R first? Or
No,
there was no R&R at all?
I never went home. I
Okay.
went I went to Bahrain.
Yeah.
I
Two
went to,
weeks?
no, four
No,
days.
week. Oh, 4 days? Okay.
4 days. Yeah. Um,
Talk about the R&R first, and then we'll come back to that.
R&R was great, man. It was
Did
great.
you get to drink? Did you drink?
Um, I didn't drink. No, I didn't
So
drink.
Bahrain was the Air Force base, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
they gave us a beer a day or like a fake beer a day or
Yeah,
something.
like O'Doul's or something like that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't drink it
Uh-huh.
um because because I wanted to remain combat ready.
Okay.
So I didn't even want to take myself out of that mode because I was just so focused on I got to get home.
Yeah.
Um, but Bahrain was great, man, because I got a massage. I got a head to toe massage.
Yeah.
I slept in. I went to the gym, and even though it was like 115 degrees outside, that that was the only time that I exhaled
Hmm.
and and felt like I didn't have to think about dying.
Okay.
Yeah,
But you know you got to go back,
yeah,
finish the rest of your tour.
that's right.
So
That's right.
now that the tour's over, um, so I'll come back to that question.
Yeah,
Your the orders for the tour is ending. You're
yeah.
going back home. You're packing up. I imagine you get the date for your flight.
Hmm.
So I imagine the anxiety, builds because now you're like, all right, I
Yeah.
got a week. I got to just stay alive for a week.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
And that date, the date of me leaving changed a couple times.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I'm frustrated all over again. Like, yo, y'all told me I'm
Hmm.
getting up out of here on this date,
Oh, oh, yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Uh, um, yeah, I would say the fear of dying officially officially ended when I touched
Hmm.
down in Dover, Delaware.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
when I reached U.S. soil
Hmm.
was when my fear of dying officially ended.
Okay. Tell us about the transition from
Mm,
deployment
mhm.
civilization.
Man, I'm still going through it, bro.
Wow. And when'd you come
Yeah.
back?
I came back in 2004.
So
Um,
almost 20 years later,
yeah,
you're still transitioning.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sounds about right.
yeah, yeah. Because I would say, I would say, I would say that I've definitely gotten to a point to where I'm more settled now. Um, but what had become so eye opening to me over the years is how I would say you, as well as many other people close to me that are in my circle, each have a situation or a story or an experience
Hmm.
where I could honestly say I can correlate it
Hmm.
to how my time in Afghanistan has changed me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to touch on that. I want to talk about being able to recognize those things
Yeah.
in other people. Because I know, like, when you look into a person's eyes, you're like, yeah, I know he's
Yeah.
seen some things.
Yeah.
Um, so we are seeing it in each other. Um, how are friends and family treating you now that you're back? Do they even
Um,
bring it up? Do they talk about it? Do you want
no,
them to talk about it, or do you want to just
no,
move past it?
just move past it. I would say the only people that I've really talked about it in depth
Hmm.
is my wife,
Hmm.
my dad, because
Hmm.
my dad has seen some stuff over the course of his military career.
Hmm. Hmm.
You,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's only been a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my mom to an extent, but not that much.
Okay.
No.
Um, actually be able to talk about it and
Oh,
let it out. Uh-huh.
I talked to a clinical psychologist at the VA twice.
Okay. Good points. So being able to talk about it, let it out, and being
Mhm.
able to talk to that guy at the VA, what's that like for you?
Being able to talk about it,
Yeah.
um, I would say it's eye opening.
Uh-huh.
It's also freeing,
Mm-hmm.
um, but at the same time, it's not as fulfilling as I thought it was going to be
Mm-hmm.
because
You feel like mm-hmm.
because
Go ahead.
unless you have been there with me or something similar,
Mm-hmm.
you'll never truly understand.
So does talking about it
Hmm.
um n- necessarily mean you're reliving it over again?
Yeah,
Um, does the reliving part get easier the more you talk about it?
no, no, it doesn't. Not for me.
So okay, so it makes sometimes it makes make you feel like it's not going to help because I'm just going to relive it and I'm going to have the same feeling over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
it's impacted me in ways that a lot of people they have no idea, man. I
Hmm.
mean, bro, I've literally my wife has seen how it impacts me, right? Like
Hmm.
I'll give you a couple of examples. I could be asleep in my bed, laying next to her, and I hop out of the bed in a fighting stance
Hmm.
because I thought that somebody broke into the house. And
Hmm.
I immediately go into fight or flight mode. And she's
Hmm.
like, "John, get in the bed."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "You didn't see that?" "No, get in the bed."
Uh,
Right? I remember waking up saying to myself, "Man, why is my hand hurting right now?" Right?
uh,
But then I have a faint recollection of the nightmare that I had that during the night where I'm fighting and I thought that I was punching the enemy, but
uh,
I'm punching my headboard,
okay.
right? Like it's or just kind of reliving some of the things that I've seen and my wife is like waking me up saying, "Hey, you're having a bad dream."
Hmm.
But it is so vivid and so real to me that I think that it is happening in real life, not that I'm dreaming.
What did the military do? Like, what was the military's process for transitioning you from Afghanistan back to the United States?
Sign a bunch of paperwork, pat you on the butt, say have a good day. Yeah,
Go back to Chocolate City, enjoy your life.
pretty much. Pretty much. And plus you got to remember when I went, the war was still early,
Hmm.
right? September 11th happened in 2001. We declared war in 2002.
Hmm.
I went over in 2003.
Hmm.
So a lot of the processes that they currently have today, I don't think they had then.
Hmm. How do you think you would have been able to handle it if you were to happen to get orders again to go back?
Great question. I dodged that bullet.
Uh-huh.
I When I came back, um, I was um, I was on a special assignment,
Hmm.
and I came up on orders for Fort Bliss, Texas. And at the time, they were forward deploying to Iraq.
Hmm.
And I signed the declination statement. Um, and they were like, "Well, just so you know, you could decline this one." but it doesn't mean that you're not going to come back up on orders again. And I said, I'll take that chance.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like they have a list of people who did that deck statement. And it's like, all right,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
get them.
yeah. I was like, I'll take my chance,
Mhm.
and it worked out.
Okay. Speaking of work, that's a good transition. Um, work life um, after the military.
Yeah.
Um, how are you feeling like about yourself, about your skill set, about your worth? What's that like?
I feel good.
Mhm.
Um, I've been extremely blessed and extremely fortunate to have what I do take me across the world, right?
Mhm.
So I feel like I have a very well-rounded understanding of how what I do in information security protects more than just people's social security numbers and
Mhm.
addresses, right? Like to me, it's about the war fighter, it's about our way of life, it's about everything that has to do with data protection, right?
Mhm.
Um, in terms of my worth, I've always had a very clear understanding of the worth that I have and the value that I bring
Mhm.
to everything that I'm involved in.
Mhm.
Whether or not other people feel that way,
Mhm.
I could give a damn. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um, the work. What are some positions that you had, you know,
Yeah.
since deployment to now?
Whew, man. So um from deployment to now, I've done a lot. So I kind of cut my teeth on IT, right? At the very basic level,
Mhm.
from help desk, systems administration, a little bit of network administration. I've transitioned into information security and have been an information security analyst.
Mhm.
Um, I've done cyber intel analysis. I've done. Um, I was I was a security engineer. Um, I was I was given a phenomenal opportunity to serve at the pleasure of the
Mhm.
president during the
Mhm.
Obama administration. So I was a senior advisor to the deputy undersecretary for cybersecurity and communications at
Mhm.
DHS during
Mhm.
Obama's second term.
Mhm.
Um, I've had the opportunity to spend some time in the private sector working for corporate America, which I'm still working in corporate
Mhm.
America. And right now, I'm a chief information security officer
Mhm.
for an operating sector at a large Fortune 100 company.
Okay.
So I feel like although I've had a series of challenges, um, it has all kind of prepared me for who I am
Mhm.
professionally
Mhm.
and what I'm doing today.
Okay. The people want to know, all right?
Yeah.
Did you ever become a businessman?
Yeah.
That was the dream, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So shameless plug.
Congrats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. So about 3 or 4 years ago, my wife and I, we had an idea of starting our own brand.
Mhm.
Um, and it's largely focused on the real estate industry, providing a series of services and products
Mhm.
from home decor to landscaping, interior decorating and design, called Noir Lux. Um, and, you
What's the
know,
URL? I'll post it.
noirlux.com,
Mm-hmm.
NOIRLUXE.com.
Okay.
And then we also have an e-commerce store,
Mm-hmm.
noirlux.shop, SHOP, where you can buy candles, reed diffusers, art,
Mm-hmm.
small decorative accessories for your home or business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I dabble in a series of other things, from real estate investing, you name it. I'm always looking for an opportunity to be able to kind of create something out of nothing, because to me, there's beauty in building something from scratch.
That's what's up, man. I'm proud of you, bro. You know, of course, of course.
Thanks, bro.
Next question. No. How are you addressing anxiety and PTSD?
By talking about it,
Uh-huh.
not holding it in the way that I used to,
Uh-huh.
because I've learned that holding it in, um, holding it in, it has created situations that were not favorable,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, it really hit me when my wife told me. She said, "Hey, you got to do something about this. You need to talk to somebody," because I've never had the desire to harm myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I've had the desire to harm others based off of how they have treated me or people that I love.
To what degree of harm, if you're willing to talk about that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was ready to take some people off this earth real quick, real quick.
Um, what has been some of the reasons, right?
I've a classic example. Um, my wife was pregnant with my firstborn.
Mhm.
We were just leaving the hospital. We had a prenatal appointment. Coming out of the parking garage, this guy almost sideswipes the entire side of the car that she was on,
Uh-huh.
and I immediately went in. And because in my mind, I was like, not only is he trying to harm my wife, there's precious cargo inside my wife right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, there is nothing that I would stop at to protect my wife and my kids. And although she was calling my name, I didn't hear her. I didn't hear her. And then it was like I just kind of snapped out of it, and I was like, I looked at her, and she was like, "You got to do better." And at that point was when I said, "Yeah, I do. I do."
Yeah, man. That feeling that you get when you finally um decide that very first time where you become okay,
Yeah,
with ending someone.
yeah,
And I imagine for you that, it has to happen like early on in your deployment,
correct.
maybe even before you even get deployed, maybe coming up in high school as a young man.
Yeah.
There's a point in your deployment where when you're like, yeah, I would end this person.
Yes, yes. I can give you another example specifically
Mhm.
related to my deployment. The first time, so we were issued um we were issued 240 rounds, for our M16s. And it was time for me to go on my first deployment. I mean, my first convoy, which was a redeployment mission. I mean, resupply mission. Um, and whenever they said lock and load, all you heard was everybody locking and loading. And at that point, you have to literally compartmentalize and put yourself in the mode of it's either him or me. I'm
Mhm.
getting back to my family. I'm getting back to the States. And
Uh,
I w- if I have to use all 200 and all 240 rounds, that's what I'm gonna do.
and then that decision gets easier and easier the more you
Yeah.
have to consider it, right?
Every day that goes by. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Whew. Yeah. How do you think your anxiety and PTSD
Hmm.
um, is either affecting your family, has affected your family,
Yeah.
and what are you doing to address that in the future?
Yeah. So I had some real conversations
Mm,
with my family,
uh,
from my mom to my dad to my wife to my cousins, to my friends, right?
mhm,
Um, I remember when you and I had a conversation one day, and
mhm.
I asked you if you could recall examples of my behavior that were
Yeah.
that were unfavorable, and you were like, "Yeah, I could recall a bunch of examples,"
Yeah.
right?
Uh,
And that to me was when it really set in that this isn't this isn't something that I could just tackle on my own, because I thought that ah I'll just I'll just do better.
mhm,
But if you're not really looking from the outside in, you'll never
uh,
truly see how it may be impacting somebody else. And I remember my mom, remember in the beginning when I told you, she's one of the most important people in my life, right?
mhm,
And when my mom told me, she was like, "You're different, and I don't like it."
yeah.
And I was like, "Noted."
Uh, it's funny that you mentioned that because that actually led me to my next question.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to those, on the outside looking in?
I would say to those on the outside looking in, you can't always you can't always assume that you understand the reasoning for the behavior.
Hmm.
And I would also say that it is good to ask questions so that you can understand the reasoning for the behavior. Because you don't know a person's story, you don't know what they've gone through or what they're currently going through, especially those that experience anxiety and PTSD, because because it's different in every person.
Yeah.
It's not the same. It is not you excuse me, and there's no one size fits all approach to addressing it. So that's what I would say: be empathetic but firm,
Hmm.
right? Um, but at the same time, understand that, especially when you're dealing with someone who has experienced PTSD or anxiety, and if you notice, I didn't say anything about the military,
Hmm.
because PTSD and anxiety can materialize in different ways from different experiences that have nothing to do with the military. Um, there's
Very true.
there's 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 99.9% chance that there's a bigger story behind it.
Right, right, right. All right. For those who are struggling,
Yeah.
what advice would you give them?
Talk to somebody that you trust. I'm fortunate enough to have to have a couple of people that I confide in on a regular basis, to include you, Tyrone.
Mhm.
Um, Although we may not always talk specifically about mental health,
Mhm.
we talk about things that we experience in our lives that can directly impact our mental health,
Mhm.
right? Whether it be relationships, whether it be um, finances, whatever the case, right? You have to you have to be willing to express it to somebody so that you get it out in a way that you know is going to be well received and not perceived in a different way.
Right.
Um, there are also a ton of resources that are available. If you don't have somebody in your personal circle that you feel like you could talk to, and you can also seek professional help, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of people also may not realize, but if you have health insurance,
Mhm.
they cover sessions with a therapist so that you can talk about what you are experiencing in terms of your mental health,
Mhm.
and that is covered by your health insurance.
Okay. Um, so follow up to that. Um, and this is like one of the reasons why we're actually doing this, right?
Yeah,
Um, having, I mean, being able to talk about it is one thing,
yeah,
confiding in someone is one thing, but having that information get out
yeah.
to either friends, family, people that you have a professional relationship with,
Hmm.
the job, like us, our conversations, our stories is on the
Hmm.
internet now,
Right, right,
right? So it's going to be there
right.
for all to see. Um,
Mhm.
how do you feel about that? And how do you feel, other people should feel about that?
I think that it's an opportunity for everyone to learn, embrace, and seek opportunities to change their mindsets, right? Um, Mental health, based on my experiences, has historically had stigma associated with it, right? But there's a lot of people who may experience mental challenges. That does not mean that they're crazy,
Hmm.
does not mean that they are not able to function, and does not mean that they cannot still achieve success.
Right.
Um, I would like to think that I'm a living example of
Right.
how, even with all of the challenges that I've experienced over the course of my life,
Hmm.
having near death experiences as well as having to overcome obstacles,
Hmm.
um, I'm still successful.
Hmm.
And I'm willing to go out on a limb and say everyone has their own interpretation of what success looks like.
Hmm.
So it's one of those things where you have to figure out what is most important to you and stick by it. You don't
Hmm.
have to live your life through somebody else's lens.
Right.
I hope that answered your question.
That's
I feel like
deep.
I was
Yeah.
rambling a little bit.
No, 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 not at all. People would need to hear that. Um, that's deep, you know.
Yeah.
Um, speaking from an entrepreneur myself, it doesn't stop you. It just means that there are things that have affected you
Yeah.
in your past,
Yeah.
right?
You learn from it. As long as you keep going up, you're headed in the right direction.
Okay. I have one final question.
Yep.
You touched on it a little bit, but I'm gonna go back. Um, I'm gonna go back to it because I want to hear it again.
Okay.
Who is John Robinson?
Woo! That one again.
Yeah.
So yeah, John Robinson is a man, a father, a husband, a son, a friend, a confidant, um,
A godfather.
a godfather, um, just an overall bad MFer. You
Yeah.
know, I put a lot of faith not only in my ability
Hmm.
to learn, but I also
Hmm.
put my faith in God and also my ability to love.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like the approaches that I'm very intentional about taking
Hmm.
have put me in a position to where I can not only live by example
Hmm.
or lead by example, but also empower those that are just willing to listen.
Yeah, man. Um, I can definitely attest to that. Even, from the moment that you were like, if I get in the door,
Yeah,
it's a wrap,
that's
right?
it.
If I get
That's
in the
it.
door, it's a wrap.
That's it.
And, your story from, to where I just met you to where you are now, like that is like the example that I always point out to people about what hard work, what being strategic
Hmm.
about your approach to life and being a professional can get you,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
now you're a very successful businessman, father, godfather to my daughter, um,
Hmm.
with the wife, kids, everything you could possibly dream of, you know, that you would want, to be as a black man in America. Um, that's you,
I appreciate that,
right?
bro. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
that's you, and I'm proud of you, man. I love you like a brother. You know that we go back, and I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. Is there anything that you would like to say, to the people to close off?
Um, I would say just keep believing in yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, your power is within you. It starts with you. And it's also important to understand that you do not have to do it all on your own because there is also strength in numbers. The successes that I've been able to achieve are not predicated solely on what I've done. It has been based off of a collective effort and the support that I continue to receive from the people that are important to me as well.
Hmm.
So, that's what I would say.
Ah, yeah. Woo. Yeah, this is good, man. Like I was saying, we've had many, many conversations, but we've never gotten
Yeah, yeah. This is
we've never
deep.
gotten this
This is deep.
like this.
Yeah,
Um, I want to thank you for being willing to do this.
yeah.
Um, you didn't even hesitate when I asked.
Nah,
It was
bro.
just like, let's get it.
Yeah, I'm always gonna be there for you, bro.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I want to thank the people for joining us. Marsha, Nicole's here. Um, Essence, First Home, Tuber. We saw Liba, D'Souza. Um, yeah, thank you all for joining us. We're going to close out. It's been almost 2 hours. It don't even feel like 2 hours at
Nah, bro.
all.
This flew by. It flew by.
Yeah. Um, we definitely want to make this a normal thing of just, you can see we're both comfortable. We want to normalize, you talking to your peoples about mental health, right? That's what it's all about. Rob mentioned, the fact that, it does help being able to have a confidant. So definitely try to find a confidant. We will have more shows. I'm going to keep this going for as long as I can. My
Oh,
next guest, yeah.
Ty, one quick addition. It is not a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think that it's a weakness to express myself as it
Uh-huh.
relates to mental health related concerns. It is
Uh-huh.
not a weakness. It is a source of strength to figure out what's going on. You get to
Uh-huh.
the root cause and work towards fixing it. It's not a weakness.
That's a great point. It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
Right? I like saying that a lot.
Mhm.
And mental health matters. And we're gonna close. I got the little Normlux on the ticker right there, of course. And I was gonna talk about the next guest, Kevin McKeever, um, Chingu. He was my boss back in Korea, and he recently retired. But he got 100%, a 100% rating for PTSD.
Wow.
So we're gonna talk about what it, that's not a easy
Mhm.
thing to obtain. The Army must have felt like he has been through some things to get that 100%.
Right.
So, we're going to talk about that next week. Him and I go way back as well. So, I look forward to that. I hope you all can join us. And you all have a great, great Saturday. All right.
All right, big dog.
Good day.
Appreciate you.
Yep. All right
Yep.
now.